And we're live. Good evening, good people. Hi, it's Jason from the Green Country Agroforestry here. It's Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. And that means it's time for yet another live stream. I've got the air conditioner turned off, and I might cut this short from a full hour tonight because it's 97 degrees outside right now. It's down from like 102, 103 earlier today. Still awful hot. And since I've got the electricity that was going to the AC unit over there, going to the lights to illuminate us, and the AC unit right here turned off. It's going to get a little bit warm. So, hi, how's everybody doing tonight? Let's see, Sasspress Red was in here earlier. Still in here. Good evening. My counter is not working up there on the StreamYard, so I'm not seeing everybody. I see you were doing some reading there. I went ahead and found that link and went there. Changes in soil physiochemical properties and soil bacteria community in mulberry, Morris alba, and alfalfa medicago sativa intercropping system. That's pretty interesting stuff. And if you were not interested in the topic, you can probably get bored with it really quickly. The brief summary at the very end of the conclusions is whenever you intercrop different things like, alfalfa and mulberry together, you wind up with greater availability of nutrients than just having one growing by itself as a monocrop. So there's that cooperation that goes on whenever you have different species that are operating together in the same system, operating different spaces in that ecosystem, because the alfalfa is an herbaceous perennial and the mulberry is either a bush or an understory tree. So they're not occupying the same space. And because they're not occupying the same space, they're not competing for space. And it turns out they're not ultimately competing for nutrients either. They help each other. The communities of microorganisms that associate with the alfalfa are different from the communities of microorganisms that associate with the mulberry, and having that diversity of community of organisms all working together and at the same time, sometimes cooperatively, sometimes competitively, increase the bioavailability of nutrients to everything in the system, which is really cool stuff. So Sasspress Red is laid up with surgery. You don't have to tell us what it is if you don't want to, but I was kind of curious. What's up? Did he have an injury, or was this more of a medical thing? Hey, I don't know how this is going to work out. I really need to get a new microphone. But I've been working on a new piece of music, driving everybody nuts with it. I'm going to play it for a little bit, and then we'll get into tonight's topic. Hernia surgery. Oh my goodness. That sounds horrible. So you're not going to be doing a whole lot of work outside. I got a little bit of strumming stuff and some other music to put on the backside of that. There's going to be a little bit more melody and rhythm in it, and probably some lyrics too. I have no idea what the lyrics are going to be yet. A lot of times it's either I've got some sort of poem that pops in my head, and I have to figure out what's going to be the music goes with it, or I've got the music and then maybe the poetry comes later, and maybe it doesn't. These things just work out the way they work. It's a good thing I'm not being paid to be a professional musician, because I'm not that great at it, huh? All right, let's see what's going on out there. Mary is here, Eric's here, Vicky is here, Lisa's here. Lisa sent me a link not too long ago for I think it was a Matt Powers video where he was interviewing a guy who was putting different cover crop seeds in with his compost. It's a pretty cool idea. Kind of similar to what I was doing with the those wood chip mushroom beds, where I interplanted different things, dynamic accumulators along with it, with the idea that even if it didn't make good mushrooms, it was going to make good compost when it was all over. Mary says it rained in Iowa. Well, it didn't rain here. Still no rain in the forecast. Well, maybe Tuesday next week, there's like a 10% chance for 1 hour out of the day. So not a whole lot of hope there. I'm really going to need to expand those ditches come wintertime, whenever I can get out there and start digging. I think we're going to need to go ahead and get them 2 foot wide and 2 foot deep, just to be able to handle the droughts to come, because I don't think we're done with this particular cycle after this year's over. I think it's going to keep on going for a few more years. So Asperus Red says, made compost tea from mulberry, comfrey, lamb's quarter, nettles, and garlic roots. Waiting to use it. Sounds pretty good. Lisa saying it's 90. What? I thought I said something about 95 degrees. What is it? Oh, there we go. 95 degrees in your living room at 8:30. 97 out here. So, and I don't have my little thermometer, but it heats up really quick inside whenever I turn the AC off. Let's see. Vicky saying, not fun to make a garden when you can't stand up and walk. Yeah, Vicky's been having problems too. We're all getting older. Let's see. Eric says he's watched some of Matt Powers' videos. He doesn't have a... Well, how do I know about this? He's got some interesting stuff. Right now he's working on some soil microscopy stuff, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a little geeky, but it's cool. Getting really good pictures of the fungal mycelia in and around the roots of plants, and putting those on the slides and being able to look at what's going on there. It's cool work. I think the first Matt Powers video I saw was on harvesting amaranth, because he has that giant orange stuff. I tried that one year. It's big. It's a little bigger than I wanted. In actuality, we've gone to a much more smaller but robust version, which is the elephant trunk. It seems to work pretty well. I'm trying that Oshberg stuff this year, which is kind of like a lovelized bleeding amaranth with the long trailing flowers. I thought it was going to be more like like a Hopi dye with that nice red color. These are green flowers, and I think that we're going to make white seeds, and I don't know how they're doing at the moment. Vicky's saying, in my opinion, you might want to consider putting them at least 3 foot down for greater water reserves. Maybe. I don't want them to go down deeper than the roots of the plants. So whenever they disperse, I want them to do more of a sideways dispersion. But I might do a 3 foot wide, 2 foot deep, and then see how that works. As I figured out that for every 1 cubic foot that I managed to get, that covers 4 square feet next to it. So if I've got two trenches on either side of say an 8 foot wide swath, then I can get 4 foot, 4 foot, and cover that entire 8 foot with enough water penetration from the ditches to keep everything hydrated, and it'll last for about 2 weeks for every one of those cubic feet, as long as it gets charged up sufficiently whenever you've got the rain coming in. So whenever you've got your rains coming, just soak those up and bank them, and then it retains the moisture during your dry period. John's in the house. Mary is saying something cryptic. I think your love lies are, oh, the love lies bleeding. Yeah, they're obviously in amaranth. They're obviously in that genus of Chenopodium. I've tried the greens, and unlike the elephant trunk amaranth greens, whenever you eat them fresh, they're not bitter, so they're still good as maybe a salad green. But we will see. We'll see how they turn out. They're not pretty to look at the way the elephant trunk is, though. Let's see. Jasper says, my idea for the compost tea was sulfur from the mulberry and garlic, all the minerals from the comfrey and nettles, and the calcium from the last quarter. It's pretty good. You're gonna get some phosphorus from last quarter too, and that should make a really good compost tea. All right, so let's get to talking about the lazy cat behind me, shall we? Oh, did I bring it? Oh, I didn't. I was going to bring out I forgot. I was going to bring out a bowl full of fruit that I had. I've got a plum in it and an apricot and some blueberries and some cherries, and all of these things are things that you can grow here in Zone 7. I did not grow all of them here in Zone 7. I picked them up from the grocery store, but I wanted to bring them out and go, look, see fruit. Of course, they don't all usually come on at the same time, which is also the important thing, but that's more food forest stuff. Here's lazy cat behind me. TLDR. I started seeing this maybe about 10, 15 years ago, somewhere around then. When was that? Maybe 2008 or so. And there was a conversation going online regarding the inflation or the expansion of food stamp benefits, what they're calling SNAP. And I laid out in great detail how exactly it is that this program, and there's a bug. Come on, fly. Whew, I need to put up fly traps. Put out in great detail how this program actually is harmful to the people that it's supposed to be helping, the people with the lowest incomes. And the reason it's harmful is because if you have low income, you don't have a lot of money, first off, right? It's kind of what defines you as a person with low incomes. You don't have much money. If you don't have much money, then you have to be careful about where you're spending that money, because you may run out before the end of the week or the month or whatever the pay cycle is that you receive that limited amount of funds that you've got. Well, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP as they call it, gives you a card, kind of like a credit card, that you can use to purchase groceries with. People who are unfamiliar with this is how it works. You take the card, you go into the grocery store, the convenience store, wherever it is that happens to have the food commodity for sale. You get the food items are. You go through the checkout line. Whenever you go to check them out, as long as they're covered by SNAP, and most of your food products are, you swipe the card like it was a credit card, beep, beep, and it pays for the food items. Now, the grocery store or convenience store, bodega, whatever it happens to be, gets compensated in cash from the federal government in exchange for the value of what was spent with SNAP. And there are limits to how much you can spend depending upon what your income level is and stuff like that. That's the details of the program. But what's important is where that money came from. And it didn't come from taxation, because they figured out a long time ago there's a limit to how much you can tax people before they start doing things to avoid being taxed. There's this certain saturation point where people go, you know what, I'm not going to work that hard, or I'm going to do things that's going to put that money someplace where Uncle Sam can't get to it. And the amount of revenue that they can get through taxation reaches a plateau and then starts falling off. The more they push it, the less they get. So there's that optimal level where you can get the most in taxation before people get fed up and stop letting you take their money. So the only other way that they had of funding these programs is by taking the money off the back end, inflating the monetary supply. And that's where the problem comes in, is because the money to pay for this is not coming from taxing rich people. It's never going to come from taxing rich people. The more you try to tax them, the less money you're going to get from them until eventually they go, you, and we're going to take our business elsewhere. They inflate the monetary supply. They borrow money, promise to pay it back later, and increase the amount of money in circulation. The only problem with this is whenever they do that, it reduces the value of the money. All right. Each individual dollar out there is chasing, there are more dollars out there chasing the same amount of goods. Effectively, you need more dollars to buy the same amount of goods. So you get to buy food, but everything else becomes more and more expensive. Because everything else becomes more and more expensive, the costs of employment increase, and it becomes harder and harder to keep lower valued employees employed. And it creates a cycle of poverty which keeps on going, and it hurts the poorest people the most. I laid this all out very clearly, explained it step by step. It was a fairly decent sized paragraph, maybe a couple of paragraphs. I was quite proud of the work. It explained the case perfectly. It made absolute 100% perfect sense. Appealed to the emotional aspects of the case. You know, we want to be compassionate and everything else. We have to understand this is what's going to happen, and then explained in detail what was going to happen. And then I started seeing comments underneath it, and it's 4 letters, all caps. TLDR. TLDR. And this appeared on a few different posts I did. Similarly, I invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, did the research, thought it out, formatted it nicely, presented it in a scholarly fashion with compassion so that people would understand the topics that being explained, exactly what they needed to know to make an informed decision whenever they went about their business, whether they wanted to be casting a vote in an election or making a decision about what they wanted to do. Not telling people what to think, but telling people what the facts actually were in a way that left nothing to ambiguity. You would have no mistake after reading these articles exactly what was going on. TLDR keeps on showing up. More than one place, more than one article, TLDR. Finally, I said, okay, what in the heck does TLDR mean? I had to respond. So what is TLDR? And somebody finally decided to explain to me what TLDR means. It means too long, didn't read. Too long, didn't read. So the time and effort that I put forth with coming up with information that would be valuable to the person that read it was wasted because these people were looking at this block of text and going, it's too long, I don't want to read it. And then they just type in TLDR and go on about their way. La-ti-da. Well, this is very disheartening because this means that there's information out there that would be readily available to somebody who wanted to invest the time to read it, but they did not want to invest the time to read it, so they didn't get the information. They're not properly informed, and they're going to go off and they're going to make horrendous mistakes in their lives. And that would be all fine and good, except those mistakes are going to impact the rest of us as well, which is a little bit concerning. And yeah, is this laziness? Is this laziness, or is this maybe something that society has programmed people into in this day and age? Whenever you sit down and you're reading a tweet, and the tweet has a maximum of 280 characters, right? And I'm looking on this website here. It's a social media cheat sheet for it's some estate planning software. I believe it's some lawyer's page, but anyways, they're talking about the optimal character lengths for social media posts. If you want somebody to actually notice your post and respond to it and share it, retweet it, so on and so, it says that studies are suggesting that tweets that are 71 to 100 characters in length are liked and retweeted more than longer posts. Now, whether that means that is the length of posts that people are likely to see and click on and read in their entirety, or if that's just the average length of most posts, I don't know. It doesn't specify. But from 140 to 280 characters, Twitter has increased the character limits from 140 to 280 characters. That's not a whole lot of space to be able to convey ideas and thoughts and emotions It's barely enough to provide a bare minimum description of anything. If I were to send some sort of message out in this short format, did you understand the nuances? Could you tell that I was joking? Could you notice the twinkle in my eye and notice the slight smirk? Or look at my expressive body language and understand what I'm trying to convey to you? I can do this in video a little bit better, right? But you can do this in text as well. You can do it in print. It just takes a lot more words to convey those ideas and to trigger those emotional responses inside the minds of the people who are reading and consuming the media content. You can't really do it in 280 characters. Well, you can. It's just very difficult to do. So we branch out now to video media format, and I started doing videos. And of course, you may notice that whenever I was first starting out, I did a lot of videos that I was really trying to shoot for that 5 to 10 minute long range, because I'm told people's attention spans are very short. They're not going to pay a lot of attention to the video unless it's short enough for them to be able to watch, get what they want to, and get out of it. But more and more, I noticed that usually people were watching the videos, and the amount of time that they were watching, say, a 10-minute video is about 2 minutes and 40 seconds or so. No, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That's just long enough for me to get through the preamble and introduce the topic. We haven't even got to the important stuff yet, and they're already checking out. So if there was valuable information that I had buried in there at, say, 7 minutes in, 8 minutes in, 10 minutes in, by the time I get to the summary where I go, and here's to wrap it up, and in conclusion, this is what you need to know, they've already left. So they never got the information. Let's take, for example, changes in soil, physiochemical properties in soil bacteria community in mulberry, Morris, alba, alfalfa, medicago sativa intercropping system. This is, of course, a scientific abstract. Sassafras Red put the link up to it really early on in the chat there, and I decided to go take a look at it, and I skimmed through it because I like to skim to get a sense of what it was about, and I liked it. It's pretty good. It's very technical. Some of the data sets are intriguing. For example, the intercrop mulberry, not specified what it's intercropped with. I'm going to assume intercropped with grass, maybe. Seems to be produce a more depleted soil result than, say, intercropping with alfalfa. In the case of adding the alfalfa, everything becomes almost twice as abundant, which is kind of cool. But you don't really get that full synopsis until you read all the way down. I'm scrolling right now looking at all the way down. I'm still scrolling down looking at all the way down here at the bottom. No, I'm still scrolling down looking at it. So it's a fairly long document getting down here, and we get to discussion and conclusions, and there it is. You're probably about a good 20, maybe 30 minutes worth of reading in here if you're reading quick. If you're just skimming the way I was able to get down to this point and go, yeah, okay, I get where you're going with this, maybe in about 10 minutes. And the conclusion is like one paragraph long. It says, our results demonstrate that our intercropping improved the richness and diversity of bacterial communities and changed the structure of bacterial communities of both mulberry and alfalfa soils, which are linked to changes in soil total carbon, available phosphate, available potassium content. Intercropping had positive impacts on soil quality by changing soil physiochemical properties and promoting soil beneficial bacteria and participating in soil nutrient cycling. So, in other words, doing an intercrop of alfalfa and mulberry ultimately is better for the ecosystem in that area altogether. This is, of course, something I talk about all the time, but there's just the scientific study going over that. Of course, the average attention span will take a look at the first couple of words of the extract and go, how many pages of this stuff is there? Oh, too long, didn't read. And if there's information that would be vital to their survival, they missed it. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration put out an article, I can't remember how many years ago, discussing the capacity of the oceans, and particularly a few limited sets of algae in the ocean to produce oxygen, metabolizing carbon dioxide, sunlight, and water, and producing oxygen. And very, very close to the very beginning of the article, in the first paragraph, if you were reading it, you would be informed that of all the oxygen on Earth that's produced through photosynthesis, half of it or more is produced in the oceans. Well, that's good to know. If you had continued reading the article, you would not discover until paragraph 3 that the majority of the oxygen that is produced in the ocean stays in the ocean and is used by the biological process of oceanic life, the marine organisms that live in the oceans. They're taking in the oxygen, they're metabolizing the oxygen and releasing CO2 through their life processes. That CO2 goes into solution in the ocean, and the microscopic plants, the plankton, the algae in the ocean are taking that CO2, converting it back into oxygen again, and most of this gas does not leave the ocean. But you didn't know this because it was too long, didn't read. And then somebody like me is going to come along later and tell you this amazingly fantastic fact that in reality, if we want to breathe oxygen, we're going to have photosynthesis here on land, terrestrially speaking. That means trees, understory trees, canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, vines, herbaceous perennials, ground covers. We need good functioning forests to convert carbon dioxide into breathable oxygen. If we don't, then we're going to start suffocating. But too long, didn't read. Besides which, they've already heard from somebody else with the 2-bit segment. Hey, most of the world's oxygen comes from the oceans. Don't listen to that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So there is now the video equivalent of too long didn't read. I guess we're going to call it too long didn't watch. I was told not too long ago by one of the viewers that it wasn't the attention span in his particular case. The reason that he was not watching videos longer than 10 minutes was not the attention span. It was because his data plan on his phone only allowed him to watch up to 10 minutes of a video at a time. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what he said. I'm passing on what he said. And the thought occurs to me that, wow, I mean, if it was me, and there was some information out there that I wanted to get, whether that was a television program that I wanted to watch or access to research papers that I wanted to be able to read, videos on this sort of thing where we're talking about this, if it was important to me, then the thing that I would be doing is not trying to get the individual creators of that content to shorten their content to fit my data plan. I'd be trying to find a way to expand my data plan. And so that makes me think this is a form of laziness. That perhaps maybe it's like, no. So I don't want to do whatever it takes to be able to have more data. And maybe that's an excuse. Maybe the laziness is an excuse. I don't know. Is this part of what Diane Jacobs over here is saying? Some people cannot change their attention span. They've got attention deficit or attention hyper deficit disorder, ADHD, or as my friend Randy's niece says, ADOS, attention deficit. Ooh, shiny. Is that what it is? Is this a neurological disorder? Is this caused by environment, or is it caused by possibly by chemical interaction? Is it genetic? What in the world is going on here that's causing people to fail to pay attention to vital life-saving information important to the survival of themselves and the survival of their species, simply because it's too long. It takes too long for them to think about. It takes too long for them to process it. They want it chopped up and put into short little bits, and then they're only going to listen to a little bit of it and then discard the rest. Is this one of those great evolutionary filters when we talk about civilizations that theoretical civilizations, of course, that are able to grow and expand and go beyond the reaches of the planets that they're birthed on, to harness the energy of their planet and then the energy of their solar system and go beyond and become great galactic civilizations? This is one of those great filters. Do we get to the information age and get our information packaged up in little bite-sized pieces and get addicted to the bite-sized nuggets of information that we can't really think about anything and beyond those little bits, and then we're moving on to the next thing. Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. Oh, I'm swiping right, swipe left, swipe left. Oh, there's something interesting. Okay, it's not that interesting. Never mind. Is this what happens? We get to this point, and then humanity suffers and falls, goes into senescence, dies out. Maybe. Let's scroll up here and have a look at what y'all are saying. Too long, didn't read. You only have fish to eat for a day. Tax the man to fish, and he'll slave forever. John says, really? Well, what is really lazy that people don't care to read? I don't know if it's that. I don't know. I still haven't been able to figure out whether or not it's laziness, whether it's conditioned, whether it's environmental, whether it's, I don't know. It is a little bit disturbing, though. Mary's saying, but there are audiobooks and podcasts. Now, Mary likes to listen to podcasts whenever she's rolling down the road. She's got earbuds in, or maybe she's got them going on the speaker in the truck. And since she's driving, her hands are full, and her eyes are on the road, but she can listen to whatever's going on, and so she'll listen to books on tape and stuff like that. And now, of course, now that there's digital medium, she doesn't have to listen to a tape. She can just listen to whatever's being streamed, and she listens to streaming podcasts and stuff like that. But she's also exposing herself to information. Not really a big problem with that. She's actually finding a way to keep her mind occupied while her body is busy doing something else. And Lisa's saying, to be fair, most people don't have a whole heck of a lot of free time. She used a different word for heck, but you know what I mean. That's true also. And this comes up too, because there's an entire community of homesteaders and preppers and gardeners and people who are interested in the scientific aspects of things. And I have a whole bunch of divergent interests, and I don't always have the time to watch everything the way I'd want to. Mary would tell me, why don't you just speed it up to 2 times normal speed and listen to it that way? The reason I don't is because whenever someone was taking the time to sit down and present their thoughts, the rhythm and the cadence that they're presenting their thoughts in is part of their state of mind and part of the way they're trying to convey that information. And if I speed it up, then I'm going to be missing those nuances that they took the time to put in there for me to notice. So I don't speed up things, unless, of course, just I need to get through to that little bit of information that was in this. I know it's buried in there. Let's go ahead and speed up till we get to the relevant part, and we'll get past the fluff part. Because we do this stuff. Content creators will occasionally go and change the camera angle a couple of different times and show you some birds and show you some flowers, and then we'll finally get back onto the topic, right? We'll do this sort of thing. So maybe you speed it up and get past that part because you don't have much time. I can understand that. Yeah, Terry looks out the window all day. Let me see. John's saying people fill their minds with useless fodder. Social media, for example. And here we are. We're on social media, right? We're on social media, but it's not always necessarily useless fodder. Sometimes there's something useful we can get out of it. Hopefully there's something useful we can get out of it. Although a lot of it is pictures of cats doing cute things, right? Mary's going to get me. It says, video length, the time that a person listens depends upon the presentation, good presentation, good. Well, they tell you you're supposed to hook the audience early on, right? Just give them enough to get them interested. Here's a little taste of something to get them interested, and then they're going to come back for more. I have noticed something. On the videos that I've done where I've done the premiere with a trailer, I've got kind of mixed feelings about doing premieres and trailers. Whenever I put the trailer up ahead of time, probably 2 or 3 days or a week ahead of time, So I already know what the video is going to be. Here's the trailer, and I put that trailer up, and then I spend the rest of the time working on putting the video together, editing the video, getting all the SEO stuff together for it, putting up there so it'll get its 200 or 300 views. That's going to wind up getting, hopefully more. Sometimes it's more. Occasionally one takes off, and like, hey, I'm actually going to get paid for this video, as opposed to I'm going to spend my time and spend a lot of money on making a video that's not going to pay off in the end. It's just going to be I'm doing this because I don't know, I like doing it, I guess. When I put the trailer up, and the trailer runs for like maybe a minute tops, I get a lot more views on the eventual video. But it's only, I can only do this for a premiere. And then once that premiere has happened, the next time somebody goes and clicks on it, they see the premiere, they see the video that premiered, they don't see the trailer. And I think it's kind of interesting. I'd like for there to be an option where I can go, okay, here's a trailer. You can watch the trailer for this video, decide whether you want to watch the video on based upon watching the trailer, and have that all the time. I think that would be cool. And maybe we suggest to YouTube that we have something like that, where we can have a trailer for a video. Anytime you want to, you can go and watch the trailer and then go and watch the video, or you can just skip the trailer and watch the video, depending upon your viewing habits. That way you can make that decision, that critical decision early on. Is this something I really want to spend my time watching? Is it going to be worth my time? Am I going to get something out of this? Or is this guy just going to go blah, 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 blah for half an hour and bore me to death and never tell me anything that I wanted to know? Maybe that's something we can do. Anyway, I'm rambling, sorry. Ray says, skimming for the news, Sasspress Red, same, yeah. John, I think the mainstream media is too saturated with everything except what is relevant to the topic in question. Oh, it's saturated, all right. Well, everywhere you look, right? There's data everywhere. As a matter of fact, they don't even call what we do here on YouTube what it really is. They call it content, right? We are content creators. We are making content. Manufacturers of data. That's all it is. Manufacturers of data. Things for people to waste their time on when they could be out there planting a tree. Or meeting a pretty girl or enjoying a good meal. Living. Right? There's all kinds of data out there. Too much data. So many different things that you can spend your time looking at, reading, listening to, devoting all of your attention and effort to. So to the point where you're so wrapped up in this cloud of options that you forget to actually have a real life of your own. There's so much of it. You can't watch it all. It's impossible to watch it all. Can't watch it all. Can't read it all. Can't interact with it all. And so you take a little bit here and a little bit there, a little bit there. You don't want to miss out. Hey, this is the thing. You don't want to miss out. What if that next thing that you click on, what if that next TikTok is the one that really has what you're looking for in it? What if this next video, that if you click on and watch it, maybe that's the one that you're going to look at and go, yeah, that's the information I was looking for. Or, do you know where I'm getting at with this? Is it making any sense? That I don't want to miss out thing. I notice this happens with particularly young people and potential relationships, right? The reason why they'll wind up getting together, the hormones kick in 2 or 3 months, and then all of a sudden, okay, well, the oxytocin isn't kicking like it used to be, and here's another opportunity over here. Maybe this is the one, and they wind up switching off and going and being with somebody else, and they go from short-term relationship to short-term relationship. Maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one. Never wanting to miss out on that opportunity, despite the fact that in all actuality, they're all going to be equally as valuable if you invested the time and energy into them, but they don't want to miss out. Don't want to miss out. Election cycles come around. And even though you know that candidate A and candidate B are both bad, maybe this one's worse than this one, you don't want to be that person that go, yeah, I didn't go and vote. Because what if the worst candidate gets elected? Oh, no. And you didn't vote for the bad candidate. you missed out on the opportunity to vote for the bad candidate and put the bad candidate in power. You don't want to be the person that let the worst candidate get elected. Oh, no. You don't want to miss out. And sometimes it's just even just the social pressure of being part of the group. I didn't want to miss out on being part of the group. I wanted to do an experiment, and somebody out there that's got a classroom that's doing a course in sociology. There's an experiment I want you to try. It's called Sociology Eggs. Take a bowl filled with hard-boiled eggs. They can be peeled if you want them to be peeled. It doesn't really matter. Hard-boiled eggs, and put them up on the desk closest to the door entering into the classroom. Put a chalkboard, a little blackboard, one of those stand-up blackboards, like you would have your restaurant menus on, close to the door. So as the students come into the room, they can see the blackboard. And it will say, you may take an egg if you wish, a hard-boiled egg if you wish. And the bowl's right there. Now, as the students come in, you'll be able to see if they'll take an egg. And if you have students that come in earlier than the other students, and you're always going to have these, you might consider having them go up and take an egg anyway. Just so when the other students come in, they can see the students who are already seated have eggs. Now here's the experiment. Will the people walking through, seeing the other students in the room have eggs already with the "feel free to take an egg if you want one" message being given to them? Will they go up and take an egg out of the bowl and go and take their seat? Or will they go, "I don't want an egg," and go and take their seat? See, free and independent thinkers are going to say, "I don't want an egg. I have no interest in a hard-boiled egg. I don't like hard-boiled eggs, and I'm not going to take an egg." Unless, of course, they happen to like hard-boiled eggs, in which case they're going to take one, yeah? How many of these people are going to be taking that egg because they're afraid of missing out on being part of the group that's got an egg? How are people wired? How are we thinking about things? Whenever you see those little bits of information coming at you, little tiny bits, how many of those little tiny bits do we have to grab because we're afraid of missing out on something? Because our time is limited. Mary says she likes to sift through the news and then look up look up the best news version of each piece of news. It's hard to do because sometimes you'll have news services that are just regurgitating the same story over and over and over again. Sometimes whenever you track it back to its original source, you discover it wasn't a story at all. It was an opinion piece that somebody did, and then a news service reported on the opinion piece. And the entire thing was just somebody's opinion, but now it's been told from the lens of, this is the news, so-and-so has an opinion on blah. Lisa's saying, yep, with all the things that people have to juggle and perfectly balanced to make ends meet, yes, they do tend to shake out to the mindlessness in their limited free time. Now, right now, Sassafras Red is laid up. He's got injuries and he's got nothing better to do with this time. Pulled up an abstract on Chenopodium alba, minerals and nutrients. Going to skim that later. Just run to the end and work backwards. Yeah, because they'll put the conclusions at the end of the paper. And then you can find out if it's something that you want to figure out how they got there with or not. And so I joined in late. My internet is a thing up, but from what I'm hearing, people lack an attention span. Short educational points work best. Yeah, there's that. Question is, why are people lacking an attention span? Is having an attention span, is having a long attention span more conducive to survival of the individual and survival as a species as a whole? If not being able to sit down and pay attention to what's going on for an extended period of time, is this detrimental? In the information age, being able to parse large amounts of data seems to be beneficial, right? But it's not a natural environment. The digital environment is not a natural environment. So it may be counterproductive as far as overall survival goes. It may be counterproductive. A person that can sift through large amounts of information and find the relevant points quickly and then focus on those in the digital age can be successful in that aspect of their lives. Whenever they get to operating in nature, maybe not so much. But that's how people have been trained. People have been trained to look for those tiny little bits. Out of garden saying hello. Hello, hello. Sasspress says maybe we can change our attention span by removing the clutter. Now, this is one of the things that Randy and I were working on a few years ago for students in his dojo, is to give the student a brief look at a room that's full of all different kinds of things, lots of clutter, and then have them try to, without looking at the room again, describe what it is that was in the room, where it was in relationship to everything else. Versus this awareness of surroundings, part of martial arts. So number 3, 1, breathe. If you're not breathing, you're not alive. So keep breathing is your first objective. Second objective is to maintain your balance. Third objective is to be aware of your surroundings at all times. You enter into a new situation. Okay, where's the potential weapons? Where's the potential threats? Where's the potential exits? Where's the potential places where a new element can come in from so you aren't blindsided by something? And training a student to be able to look at that cluttered environment and go, okay, now close your eyes, describe the room. What's in it? What's relevant? It's really interesting because depending upon the person, depending upon the way that their mind has been trained to this point, what they find relevant is going to be different from one person to the other. Our eyes saw everything in the room. You saw the entire picture, all of it. And that is recorded in the brain. It's right there. You've got that information. But your brain immediately starts filtering through it and trying to find the bits that it thinks, according to your subconscious mind, the programming, are relevant. And so every person, depending upon how their brain has been trained up to this point in time, is going to look at the same scene and see something different, depending upon how complex the picture is. If it's a very complex picture, then two different people can be sitting side by side, look at the exact same picture, close their eyes, describe the picture, and they're talking about something else entirely. This leads to people living in different realities. Or the effect is as if a person is living in a different reality. So we have a person over here on one side of, say, the political spectrum. Their perception, shaped by the way they interact with the world, is going to be so far out of phase with the person on this other side of the political spectrum that they're living in two separate realities, even though they're sharing the same reality. In their minds, the place where they're experiencing their reality, it's entirely different. So remove the clutter. Help remove some of the biases maybe that people have. The things that have their minds programmed to look at the world in that particular way. Can you learn to see the world the way it really is? Can you see the truth? Ideally, we're supposed to be looking for the truth, right? Heterodox says, biomass takes many forms. All right. Scroll down a bit here. So John's getting ready to bounce. Russell's getting a bit better as time goes on. I don't think he's always right about everything, but the thing that I do like about him is he's willing to explore possibilities and think about things, which has its advantages, right? Too many shiny things were evolved to notice shiny things. So if all we have are shiny things, we're distracted. Maybe. I'm not going to say that out loud. All right. Okay, heterodox is saying watching videos reduces attention span. Reading and working outdoors a lot tends to be better. I have noticed that I do a lot more thinking whenever I'm outside and working. Even if the only thing I'm doing is splitting wood. You'd be amazed at the amount of thinking you can get done whenever you're splitting wood or mucking out a stable. Think some interesting thoughts whenever you're busily working, digging a ditch. Your body is busy. This part's busy. Your mind is now free for some reason. now that your body is occupied doing something mindless, your mind becomes free to actually think about things. And so you do. And then doing that physical labor winds up becoming a form of meditation. I love doing mindless physical labor because it's liberating. It's liberating to the mind. Your mind isn't distracted by all the little things. Just, here's the task, we do the task, and now that's got us occupied here. Now we're free. Now we can think about something. But yeah, watching videos gives you all the information you need already packaged in the video. Here it is. You don't need to think any further. I've given you what to think for you. Here's what you need to think. I'm the expert after all. I'm the guy on the screen, right? I must know what I'm talking about. If I were to give you that same information written out on a piece of paper, you can read it and go, okay, now I'm having to process this information for myself. And that's another thing that we covered for the martial arts lessons is all education is self-education. I can tell you something over and over again. It's going to go in one ear, out the other. Until you take that information and incorporate it into what you're doing and make it a part of yourself, you haven't learned it. That's why whenever I'm doing things, sometimes I'm doing a video, and the only thing I'm doing in the video is teaching myself something. I've read about this. Okay, I need to learn about this. The only way I know I'm going to know it is if I go out and do it. This is how I got started on brewing. I'd never brewed anything before, so I went and I got the equipment and I sat down and said, okay, here's how you go about the brewing. Here's the procedure. Here's all the stuff. And then I did it. And only until the point where I'd actually gone all the way through the process did I really understand what taking sugars were, or taking starches and converting them to sugars through use of enzymes at the proper temperatures, and then allowing the fermentation process to happen. Until I'd done that, it was all just intellectual, right? It was words. It was clutter. It was meaningless until I had taken it, acted on it, and turned it into something that was now a part of me. So yeah, reading and doing work is going to increase attention span instead of just looking at a screen all day and going, okay, here's now on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one, 30 second, 30 second, 30 second, bit. And you can go through a whole lot of useless bits flipping through TikToks. Dan saying it would be better to encourage people to love the outdoors versus technology. So isn't that the problem, though? If we start telling people, oh, throw away your technology, embrace the outdoors, well, you're a Luddite. There's got to be some balance between the tech and the nature. I like to think of myself as a high-tech caveman. We want to take the best aspects of what tech has to offer, but not cut ourselves off from nature either. He does like to actually go through and work through problems. All right. Mary's saying, a life with no gadgets. Oh no. How do we get through a life with no gadgets? I like to try to find ways that I can get something accomplished without the gadgets. That doesn't mean the gadgets aren't a great thing, and it doesn't mean that there aren't some products out there that maybe it would be a good idea to go out and buy. I mean, I'm not opposed to getting a good fishing rod and a good fishing reel. I like bait casters personally. I'll put in a plug for Zebco because they're a local company. But I can catch fish with a piece of river cane and a bit of string and a hook just as easily. And sometimes doing things the primitive way is more rewarding. stress of being laid up. Can't be distracted with all the stuff I can't do, so I have time and mind to read abstracts. I've got 3 of the lists for the food forest book completed now. I've got the canopy list done. I've got actually I'm going to make one change to the canopy list later on, because I realized there's a tree that I'm growing that would be a canopy tree. It would be just fine for canopy. And there's one that I put in there that would be actually much better as an understory. So I'm going to pull that one out and put the one that I'd forgotten, because when I was going through the parsing of the list using Plants for a Future as a resource, it didn't show up. Of course, we're talking about Tunis sinensis, Chinese mahogany. It grows here in the temperate zone. It's growing really well. Second year for the plant here on our little 1/3 acre homestead. Of course, they call this the beef and onion plant, right? And if you ever watch, what is it, Weird Fruit Explorer? I think it is. He covered this particular plant at one time, and I decided that just sounded so cool. I'm going to have to go get one. So I had to wait a couple of years before the nursery that sells them had one for sale, because a lot of these things, guys, oh my gosh, if you've got some property, and it doesn't have to be a lot, take about 5 or 6 plants, trees, shrubs, whatever it is that you think you can propagate, get those started, start propagating and selling them. The market is far from saturated. You'd be surprised. Jujube trees, I spent like $50 a piece on them. The company I got them from sold out within a week after they came up for sale. Sean at Edible Acres up there in the Finger Lakes area, he's puts this stuff up for sale, and the same day it's gone, sold. So if you weren't there the minute it went up, you missed it. Lots of room for small nurseries out there to give you an opportunity to get some extra cash in your pocket, propagating something that you're going to like. A lot of stuff that we sell, it goes out locally. Occasionally it'll wind up on the website. Like if I have a whole bunch of, right now I've got a whole bunch of rosemary, and I've got a whole bunch of Hemerocallis fulva orange daylily. Diane says, I just had a visit from my 14-year-old grandson. He went ballistic because his mom took away his earbuds. Yeah, you're ruining my life. Heterodox says, Viva Fry with Robert Barnes on Sunday night is best live stream on YouTube or Rumble. I've caught Viva Fry a couple of times. I saw a few of his videos back during the Canadian trucker protest. But outside of that context, I haven't watched a whole lot of them. Let's see. You too, huh? Yeah, I identify as a high-tech caveman. You know, I want to be close to the natural nature. I want to be close to nature, not just to nature outside, right? I want to be close to my own nature. I want to be close to my nature as a human being. I want to be a real, genuine, authentic human being. I want to be who I really am. I don't want to be some fake version or some imaginary, well, this is the popular version of what you're supposed to be. I want to be what I am. That's the cool thing, right? It took me years to figure that out. I was not a cool kid when I was younger. I was just trying to figure out how to be popular. No, that's missing the boat. You don't have to try to figure out how to be popular. What you have to do is figure out how to be yourself. And whenever you are your real, genuine, authentic self, it's going to draw interest. Nobody likes fake people. Ooh. Brewing some mulberry wine. That's nice. Hopefully we're going to have enough mulberries here before 12 along. They'll be able to brew some too. And I scrolled down too far. Let's see. Let's see. Oh man, what is reality? What is truth? All right, so here we go. Heterodox sin, illusory effect and anchor bias sits in when people watch corporate news. No way to have a conversation. The other big problem that we run into, right, is because the social media platforms that we engage in, right, the places where we get our news, the places where we exchange ideas, try to cater information based upon our history or track record of looking at things. If I start looking at videos on cats, I'm going to have a lot more videos on cats pop up, and this is going to reinforce this world where I watch cat videos. Not too long ago, I saw a video somebody had done on the PSL FPK 7.62 by 54 rimmed Romanian version of the Dragunov SVD. Interesting topic. Won't bore you with the details. Yeah, well, back during the Soviet Union era, Romania was not really backing the Russian core of the Soviet Union on their efforts in Czechoslovakia. And it's like, I don't think we need to be doing anything there. And the Soviets said, well, fine, we're not going to send you military equipment. And so the Romanians came up with their own version of the Dragunov SVD, but they used the AK-47 as the base, the foundation for the rifle, except chambers the 7.62 by 54 rim, the higher powered cartridge. So it's an AK-47 in all effect, but it chambers this high powered rifle cartridge. An AK-47 chambers an intermediary rifle cartridge. Incidentally, that makes it a assault rifle. It's fully capable of being fired at a fully automatic rate of fire, and it chambers an intermediary cartridge. That's what makes it an assault rifle. So the Romanians make one semi-auto only that fires a full-size rifle cartridge. They added some additional reinforcements to it, and it looks similar to the Dragunov, but the fact that it's at its core an AK-47 is immensely cool. It means it has that durability and reliability of the AK-47, but it's a big boy rifle. So I bought one a few years back, and I love the heck out of it. Don't get to go out and shoot it very often because I don't want to waste the ammo. But if anybody has some problems with some hogs, it's a great hog hunting rifle. Anyway, after I clicked on that, for the next couple of days, I was getting hit with videos on here's a PSL, here's a PSL, here's a PSL, here's a PSL. More and more of that stuff. If I make the mistake of clicking on a video that has a girl showing off her bust line and obviously trying to be sexy, even if the topic of the video is the reason why I clicked on it, for the next couple of days, I'm going to get flooded with these, hey, look at pretty girls videos, that sort of thing. When it comes to political views, if we click on a whole bunch of the, say, more, I hate to say right because it's not really the correct word, right-leaning or left-leaning news, then we get pushed into this corner where that's the only thing that's coming at us. We get stuck in these chambers where the only thing that's being reflected at us is the thing that we express an interest in. Since this is the only thing that's being shown to us, it's the only thing we're clicking on, and this just reinforces us to look at that same thing more and more and more. And once again, this causes that schism, right? To the point where you have people over here looking in an entirely different world from the people over here, and they're both looking at the same world. And it's all illusion. It's all illusion. It's all bias. And it makes it difficult for people to see the truth. Part of being able to get to the point where you can see the truth is realizing that you're being fed an illusion. Lisa being a primary example. Even despite the fact Lisa and I can sit down, we can have conversations, and even though we don't necessarily agree on things because we're looking at things from two different worldviews, I understand how she got to that worldview, and I'm not going to beat her up for it. And I've got friends who are all the way over here on the other side of the spectrum too. I understand how they got there as well. TA is in the house. with a nice fish. Like the thumbnail. Not as an experiment. I do take cartons of eggs to class for my students to take home. I have more of the where they can sell on the farm gate wagon. That's kind of cool, actually. What do you teach? If I might be so bold as to ask. Mark, Arkansas woodcutter, is a former high school physics teacher. He's fun to talk to. He looks like a hillbilly, but he knows what he's talking about. You'll have teachers that just read out of the textbook, and then you have teachers that are so excited about the subject, they look at the opportunities to teach as an opportunity to learn more themselves. And it's one of the things I've discovered doing gardening and agroforestry, permaculture type stuff. Since I'm in the space where I'm having to present the material, I have to dig through it and go, okay, my depth of knowledge becomes greater. And people will ask me questions like, I don't know the answer to that question. And since I don't know the answer to that question, it forces me to go and look and see if I can find the answer. And then if I can, I'll be able to pass it on. And that's this increases my own knowledge base, and I learn more. So they say in business, if there's something that you really like that you want to have more of, so you want to have more coffee cups or more teapots. If there's something that you want to have more of, go into business where you make or sell that thing, and you'll have a surplus. And if there's something that you want to learn, set about teaching that subject. Yeah. Turn off the news, get out of the echo chamber, go out and experience nature and see the world for what it really is if you can. Rainy white belt Wookie. Oh, yeah. So Randy's Kokushin class. Interesting thing about Randy. Whenever he was still teaching Kokushin, he gave up teaching Kokushin. He's now just focusing on other things. But while he was teaching Kyokushin, you have to go through 6 months of training before you even earn the right to put on a white belt. You'd have to be able to use your atemiwaza to break boards before you can put on your white belt. Part of graduating to, you can now wear your gi and not just a pair of sweatpants. Was going through Heian Shodan, going through your basic katas, demonstrating to his satisfaction, and he was a perfectionist. So I'm able to be happy to say I have a yellow belt in Kyokushin. I earned that. It was not easy. But you could put one of his white belts up against a black belt from just about any other art, and it's no contest. Vesper says, I always come up with the best topics. Yeah, I know. I've already read ahead, but I know exactly what you're saying. I always come up with the best topics and what to do and say in a video when I'm working or mowing and not recording a video. Yeah, I've watched a few. That's true. I'll go out and I'm going to go out and I'm going to work, and I'm going to get some stuff done. And in the course of working and getting stuff done, maybe I'll figure out what it is that I want to talk about next. Maybe the topic of tonight's live stream is going to come up sometime during the day while I'm out doing whatever it is that I'm doing. And that's usually what happens. If I was to sit around and try to figure out what it is I'm going to do, what video I'm going to shoot, how I'm going to present the information, what I'm going to talk about next, then I'd be sitting here spinning my wheels and trying to intellectually work out something, and it would wind up being a whole bunch of BS, and you probably wouldn't want to watch it. To be too contrived, right? Everybody is wired differently and uniquely. We are all having our own individual experience of this thing that we call reality. And the experience that I'm having is going to be different from the experience that you're having. It's going to be different from the experience of everyone else you meet. We're all having unique and different experiences of reality. And they're all equally valid. Doesn't necessarily mean we're all right. It's just that internally our experience is true for us. Peter says, mulberry wine sounds good. Planted a bunch of trees. Not sure how long before I get fruit. Depends upon whether they were seedlings or whether they were rooted cuttings. Probably about 3 to 5 years. Probably. Speaking of, hey, guess what I got down here? Oh, no, that's not the right one. This is the right one. What do I got in here? I've got mulberry cuttings right there. And they're starting to bud out. It's pretty cool. So here's the technique. I get a big bag, right? These are 1 gallon bags, and Mary ordered up some, I think they're 2 gallon storage bags for me for doing this in. And you take the bag, you put your potting mix in the bottom, you go ahead and moisten your peat moss, etc. Take your cuttings the way you ordinarily would. Oh, and see, this is the reason why you want to watch until the end of the video, because sometimes the good information doesn't come until later. I've got the secret for when to take cuttings. I finally figured this out, and I will impart the wisdom onto you. All right. After I tell you about the bag, put your potting mix in the bag. You put it down into a container like we have here, and then stick your cuttings in. These ones I did not use any rooting hormone on, which is going to be interesting because mulberry is notoriously difficult to root. So we're going to see. We're going to keep the moisture content high. Like I said, they're budding already here in another couple of weeks. They may actually form roots, and we'll have some mulberry. If that works, then this particular method has been proven as being effective. All right, so bigger bag, more space, less chance of dampening off from having the leaves touch the side of the bag. All right, so the secret for when to take cuttings. You guys ready for this? It's going to be great. The energy that a plant requires to reproduce, if it's going to be reproducing through sexual reproduction, producing flowers and fruit, is going to take up all of its energy that it could be using to reproduce during that time of its life. So earlier in the year, whenever the mulberries were being produced, whenever the tree was producing berries, bad time to take cuttings. It's trying to make fruit and reproduce sexually during that time period. Once it's done fruiting, you can take the cuttings. Now, if you've got some tree that wants to make its fruit later on in the year, much later on in the year, and it hasn't got to that point where it's reproducing yet, but you've still got new growth, you can take cuttings then. You can take cuttings earlier. But typically you go either earlier, before the fruiting cycle, or after the fruiting cycle is done for the year. Some things, if the fruiting cycle comes really late, right before your frost comes, you might have to take your cuttings just before we go into dormancy, then bring them inside and then keep them over the winter. And people do that. I've seen that work out in several cases. Other times you might want to say, start out early in the year before that fruiting cycle starts, and then take your cuttings before the fruiting cycle starts. In any case, you want to do this at the time when the tree is not producing, let's reproduce sexually hormones. When it's not producing those hormones, it can produce hormones that will cause rooting through vegetative propagation. And that is the trick for selecting the right time to take your cuttings. Now, previously, I've just known how to take cuttings by reading about when is the right time to take a cutting for this species? When is the right time to take a cutting for this species? When is the right time to take a cutting for this species? But nobody had ever bothered to explain why. Why is a very important question. Lisa's saying Luddite isn't actually derogatory. It's a pretty cool story. Yeah. Oh, scroll down too far again. Hey, Melody's in the house. Hi, Melody. Trying to figure out how they got there and why and what they claim treats only $400, and the reviews say it did not work. Oh, I probably missed something there. See, I scrolled down way too far. All right, here we go. I think I found the first one. This is an emergency. Please help. I need information on the Mexican bean beetle. How? Why? And what can people use to treat this odd beetle that no one has seen or experienced before? I had some experience with the Mexican bean beetle also this year. And it was interesting because this is the first year that I've tried planting the yard long bean. I'm suspecting I haven't watched the video yet, but I noticed you had something out there earlier. Was it the noodle beans? Is it hitting your noodle beans? Out of curiosity, is it the noodles? Is it the noodle beans? I bet it's the noodle beans. My yard long beans are just getting devastated. And honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Other than maybe we shouldn't try to grow that particular type of bean. Maybe we should try growing something else. It's either that or you're going to have to find a way to deal with the pest itself, either by, like I said, try a different crop, the one that the pest isn't going to hit. That's cheating it out of its food source. Try to find a proper counter to the pest. Find the predator that's going to eat it and keep it under control. Or, go to the poisons, which would rather not do because most of them are broad-reaching and will affect other things other than just that pest. And here's Heterodox saying, I'm going to have so many elderberries this year I won't be able to harvest and process them all. That's a good problem to have. And also, since you brought up elderberries, that is something that you can do with a pest outbreak, problem with pests. Of course, you can use tobacco and make a tea of the leaves and use the nicotine as a pesticide. The elderberry is also an effective pesticide, and it might help with the bean beetle. I'd try that if I wasn't about ready to just throw up my hands and go, okay, the yard long bean's probably not going to take here. But I don't know. It was the craziest thing. Sassafras Red is saying neem oil. Neem oil is good. The only problem I have with neem oil is I don't grow neem trees. I'm not even sure if I can grow a neem tree here. Which means if I want to be able to find a sustainable source of that particular insecticide, I'm in a little bit of a bind. So I'm thinking maybe elderberry, but I don't have enough elderberry right now to be able to use elderberry as an effective insecticide. So at the moment, I'm just nothing I can do about it except wait. The beans that I can save for seed later, I'll save for seed later, and we'll see if they jump. It'll be interesting. I found the little critter inside of them, little booger flies. Whenever I was opening up the pod that had been infested, I was opening up over a bucket. One of them fell out into the bucket, and I was like, "Oh, cool! It's small enough. I think I can go feed it to the fish." When I went to go dump it, it went zing and flew out. Little booger. Oy. But usually we don't see them this far north, right? They're a more southern pest. But mild winter this past year, we had mild winter here in the plains, and that's allowed some insects to spread further than they would have otherwise, and that's a precursor to other problems. And of course, pests that show up that weren't here before are showing up. Sassafras Red saying Captain Jack's dead bug juice that contains a bacterial toxin called spinosad. If I could figure out how to manufacture it, it would be good. Typically, the way you would go about manufacturing something equivalent is if you can get a lot of the insect in question, whatever the insect is, be it grasshoppers, you want to get rid of grasshoppers, get a bunch of grasshoppers. You want to get rid of cockroaches, get a bunch of cockroaches. Probably not the best idea for cockroaches, and I'll explain why in a minute. But you take a bunch of that insect, you go ahead and put them in the water and let them start to decompose, blur them up in a blender, strain off the juice, spray that dilute, and then spray on the thing that you want to protect. And that will either kill or repel more of that same insect. In the case of cockroaches, decomposing cockroaches stink to high heaven. So, you probably don't want to use that indoors to treat cockroaches, but it will get rid of them. You get to the point where if you've got a bug problem, you've got a cup with a little bit of water in it, one of those little plastic solo cups or whatever. The bugs will crawl up, they'll go inside the cup, they'll fall inside, they won't be able to crawl back out, they drown or they die. And they'll get to a certain point, usually whenever they start decomposing, that the other bugs stop crawling into the cup. They don't go there anymore. So it's an effective bug repellent. But like I said, it stinks. I don't have enough of these beetles to make any of that, so I can't use that method either. If I had a bunch of them, I could do it, but I don't. Getting back on our topic, Sasspress, that's why I look at the extreme right, extreme left, and the center news so I can see all the propaganda. Yeah, and once you've got to the point where you realize that you're being fed this illusion, that you're being guided into an echo chamber here, we're gonna spit your own bias back out at you to reinforce what you believe the world to be and keep you from seeing the other side of the story, even to the point where we're going to demonize the people that have a different worldview. They've got you hooked. But if you get to the point where you can see that, okay, this is propaganda, that's propaganda. They're trying to sell this worldview, that worldview. They're trying to keep you locked into this particular area where they can sell you product. Ultimately, this is what's going on, right? The news media wants your butt in the seat, eyes on the screen, looking at the ads so they can get paid. Whatever it takes to get you there, that's what they're going to do. Once you see what's going on, you can see a whole lot. And go, wait a minute, this is all BS. We're being fed just big whole heaping spoonfuls of BS. Mary says, Google seconds neem oil. Lisa said, what does that mean? Why am I the primary example? Oh, this is going back to earlier. Because your worldview is more left-leaning than most people that I interact with on a regular basis, which is it's an interesting and a refreshing change. I think Mike Modenbach, Mary, if you remember Mike, we haven't been able to hang out with Mike in a while. So another fellow, he says, I am a classic liberal. And we had lots of fun discussions with him. But usually people will get into one frame or the other and they won't communicate at all. And then they find out that, or they don't have the opportunity to find out that they have so much in common that they shouldn't be enemies. But the way news media and algorithms pit people against each other is truly unfortunate. Nicolai says 3 in less than 24 hours it was fully infested. Yeah. The speed at which these beetles are taking over these particular beans is pretty shocking. Cedar oil does work. Cedar oil, for example, cedar side is very, very expensive. Mel's saying we're trying to figure out how they got there and why and what they claim treated. It's almost $400. Reviews say it did not work. That's disturbing. I'll have to do more research on it and I'll get back to you later. Well, here's the thing. Like I said, the mild winter that we had may have allowed them to overwinter in the soil, and that's just, we're going to have a year where there's a bunch of them. We can cross our fingers and hope that we get a good hard freeze and that that's sufficient. And then otherwise, we're just going to have to find some other way to deal with it. My Cherokee Trail of Tears black beans are still doing good. Still doing good. They haven't been affected. So it's just that soft bodied bean, I guess it is. But my shelling beans are fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I were to take everything that we talked with Mike about, classic liberal used to vote Democratic, right? Everything that we used to talk with him about, and compare that to the current idea about the left and the right is, yeah, he'd be a right winger. They'd be calling him all kinds of names. Remember in convenience stores sold Mexican jumping beans as novelties, right? Yeah, and oddly enough, whenever I look at the dried that seed, the noodle bean seed, the dried noodle bean seed, that looks like what you would get in those little containers with the Mexican jumping beans. So maybe they came in with the seed. It's possible. Yeah, and this one kind of looks like the little kitty that we got. No, not exactly. This one's more of a tiger stripe plus it's got the little white yolk and paws and stuff. Um, too pretty kitty though. Ah, yes, my perspective is quite working class centric. I enjoyed. Yeah, it's. I don't get to sit down and talk with a person that has that particular worldview on a regular basis. Yeah, whenever we had that juniper tree, we had to cut down a juniper tree because it was in the way of where we needed to put the stovepipe for the wood stove. It's either we have the juniper tree there or we have a wood stove, and having a backup for heat in case of emergencies was more important. So we got rid of the juniper. Oversized eastern red cedar, really big one. But we cut it down. But while we still had it, we could harvest the berries and make it either a tincture or tea out of those and use those for scaring off the bugs, and it worked pretty well. Ran the ants away. Kind of so I can say where I call planting. Well, when it comes to ideas and seeds of ideas, you can plant an idea and then step back and go, okay, I've put the seed in your mind. Now let's see what you do with it. And you can wind up seeing something entirely different grow out of that. Not so much of I'm going to take my worldview and then transplant it to this other person. So I'm going to expose you to a different way of thinking about things and let you go with it from here. And then where you wind up going with it, that's going to be your own process. That's called freedom. Let's see. So that's what we're saying. It's possible. Seems to me that it's possible to hold conservative and literal. Well, see, this problem. This is the big problem with labels, right? Big problem with labels, because a lot of what are being called conservative ideas now are very liberal or libertarian ideas. But this is only a portion of the picture, right? We have the Republicans that we've been led to think are conservative. They're not. And we've got Democrats who've been led to think are liberal, and they're not either. These labels are misleading. Here's I remember Mike's grandma. Yeah, a little bit. A bit. Cool old bird. South Press saying, I believe that was once called open-mindedness. And sometimes it's important to be able to stop and go, okay, wait a minute. Let's try to remove my emotional bias from this. Let's try to remove the way I've been led to think about this and see what's really here. Maybe I'm not seeing this correctly. Is there a possibility that maybe I've got this wrong? For a long time, when I was a kid, I used to see, well, not really a kid, but a younger person than I am today. I used to see these advertisements for Feed the Children, to a charitable organization. There's Sally Struthers would get out there and very teary-eyed talk about the plight of whoever it was in whatever third world country it was that was currently suffering a famine and how they needed to be fed. Feed the children, feed the children. And then, it'd play on your emotions and you go, yeah, I feel bad for these suffering people. I hate to see anyone suffer. Of course, the hook here is once we've got you to feel, this compassion for your fellow human being, here we come asking you for the pledge of money, write the check, send it out, and we will take that money. Of course, we'll take some to pay for Sally Struthers to get a little bit bigger and pay for other overhead expenses. And then we will send some food to these people who are starving and suffering. And you can feel good because you did something to help alleviate world hunger. It's a really effective pitch because most people are good people, as I keep on saying. Most people are good, or at least want to be good. At the very least, they don't want to be considered to be bad. But this emotional appeal says, "Hey, I can do something. I've got money in my bank account. I can write a check. I can help feed the children. And I can feel good about myself." Well, let's stop and think about what happens whenever you do that. Usually, in these countries where we've got the famine going on, what they don't show you is the warlords, the political structure that's in charge, that's going to confiscate a large portion of the aid that gets sent. It'll go to feed their armies, to keep the people in the oppressed condition that led to them being in the famine in the first place. Not to mention the overall problem with having too many people on too small of an amount of space, land that can't support them. If you did absolutely nothing, didn't send any money, didn't send any aid, then either the current generation would die and not produce a new generation, or the people would reach a certain level of frustration to the point where they said, okay, we've had enough, and they'll do something about the warlords. In any case, when we sent them aid, we allowed them to live long enough to reproduce and produce another generation of suffering people, and even more suffering people. And we compounded the misery by acting on compassion without full understanding of the situation. If you really wanted to help, then what you should do is certainly, yes, send some food aid, but also send rifles, ammunition, tanks, helicopters, building materials, and heavy equipment. Come in, eliminate the warlords, and then get to work building infrastructure, and then hand over the operations to the people and go, okay, there you go. This isn't a gift. It's a loan. You need to pay us back. That way you can have pride. But yeah, you're not seeing any charitable organizations do that. And whenever nations try to do that, we call it nation building. It never works out well either. So sometimes, yeah, the best thing you can do is nothing. We've got a crop overrun with a particular type of beetle. It's going to destroy the crop. We might have to just accept that we can't grow that crop and move on. And that's hard because we want to do something, right? We want to be able to help. But sometimes the best thing you can do is stand back and go, okay, let's let nature take care of this. If I plant a tree that I really want, but it turns out that it's not going to grow here, it's not going to be able to live in this situation, then let nature take over. Eventually cut the tree down. We're going to try something else here instead. Sometimes that's what you got to do. Yeah, nation building. Tried it in Afghanistan, tried it in Iraq too. There's some circumstances where it worked out, but different times. That would have been the 1950s in Japan. Worked out to the point where we kind of overstayed our welcome in Japan. In Germany. And this is true. This is a bigger problem is that most people are quite ignorant of what leftists want and believe what leftists and liberals are not. So, you start using a word or a term, and what a person has been exposed to mostly the right aspect hears and then registers as what they understand what this word means. They immediately think something else than what you're talking about. And they go, and then immediately we've lost the ability to communicate because we're taught certain worldviews and focused in on those to the point where we can't see truth. Yeah, and we're still in Japan, or the United States is still in Japan. I'm not in Japan. And there are a lot of Japanese that are like, okay, guys, country's rebuilt now. We can handle things from here on out. We greatly appreciate the help with rebuilding. So sorry about the war from before, but can we now just peacefully go our own ways? We'll love you from over here, and you can love us from over there, and we can be friends, but you're getting a little bit too familiar. You know? Familiarity, it breeds contempt. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, there was a lot of cronyism going on there, right? And that's been going on for quite a while now. Cronyism. Somebody in a position of power in government uses the position of power in government to reward their friends and punish their enemies. Contracts, helicopter money. Whenever it was rebuilding after the Second World War, it was rebuilding, real rebuilding. Let's start a war, said Nagy one day. Yeah. We want to talk about the false left-right paradigm. I think I did something about this a while back. It was a little blurb at the beginning. I believe it was planting okra at night. I titled it "Planting Okra at Night Like a Maniac," and it was later on during the planting season, one of these years in the past, when I decided I was going to just Burbank my okra and go across the entire backyard and intensive plant okra everywhere, and then see which ones turned out good and save those for seed. And I did that. But at the beginning of it, I set up a thought experiment. Said, okay, there's this town over here and a town over here. They're separated by a wide plain, and there's a road that goes over here, which is running by a swamp. Yeah, and it's a little bit longer, or maybe it was the other road. It's a little bit longer. It's a little bit rougher, but it gets there. And then there's this other one that runs through the forest, but there's wild beasts in the forest. There's some hazards and dangers, but it'll get you there quicker. Like I said, it could have been this one or the other. How are you going to get from point A to point B? And I allow people to think about this one. I gave you two roads, but I also mentioned something else. these two cities are separated by a broad plain. I didn't mention anything about the plain being a potential route, but the shortest distance between 2 points is still a straight line. And only a couple of people in the comments noticed that on the diagram that I gave you, here's this path over here going to from point A to point B. Long route or short route, whichever one it was, over here. And then here's this one, long route, going over here from point A to point B. And I gave advantages and disadvantages of both of the routes, the roads. Very few people said, why don't you just go straight across the plain? Very few people, because that wasn't presented as an option. And of course, this is what happens whenever we're watching news media, right? We're presented with options. You can choose this path or you can choose this path. If you choose this path, then you can be in this group. If you choose this path, then you can be in this group. And either way, you wind up with a built-in automatic peer group that you can belong to. You're now part of a group, a tribe. You belong to this group of people, or you belong to this group of people. But actually going straight to the heart of the matter and going, well, actually, I can see what the problem is. If we wanted to get from point A to point B, we just go straight across the plain. This is not given to you as an option. You had to think of this for yourself. So, anyway. Maybe we can get to the point where we start looking for that option that isn't given, or to find our own options. I think people in charge, people in positions of power don't want us to be thinking of our own options. Because if we're thinking of our own options, if we're creating our own solutions, guess what? We don't need them. If we don't need them, if they become irrelevant and, well, in all actuality, harmful to our ends, which they are, and we all know this, and the people who were on the left and the people who were on the right are now coming together in the middle and going, we can sort this out ourselves, then they lose their power. And people who have power don't want to lose it. Anyway, I'm getting ready to take off because we've been on here for almost an hour and 45 minutes. Oh my goodness. Look at what Lisa just did. Right there. Got into a disagreement and said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. This is exactly what we need to do whenever we find ourselves on different sides of an argument, is go, wait a minute. Hang on. Maybe my bias is affecting the way I'm thinking about this. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. I didn't mean for us to be in this point where we're in contention. Can we now get to a point where we can communicate with each other and interface in a way that's constructive? That's exactly what we have to wind up doing. It's hard to do because you have to suppress your own ego long enough to go, okay, wait a minute. They aren't looking at the world the same way I am. My worldview is built up through years and years and years and years and years and a lot of thinking and a lot of looking at things and a lot of, I can't just lay it out for you to the point where you're going to see it right away. Remember, too long didn't read? If I were to give you everything that you needed to know about this topic, it would be a huge block of text. And by the time you got through it all, if you were reading and honest and open about it, then yeah, you'd understand exactly where I was coming from. But too long didn't read. It's a lot of effort to get a person to the point where they can actually really understand the frame of reference that you're coming from. And so a lot of people don't try. Unfortunately, that's the great tragedy of the modern era, is people aren't trying to become able to relate to each other. And so it's this camp against that camp. And here in the not too distant future, yeah, it's probably going to lead to some serious violence, unfortunately. But hopefully on the other side of it, if there's enough of us that realize what was going on, that won't reach out and try to establish a similar setup or a similar system in the future, there may be some hope for us after all on the other side of it. Anyway, good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the hay bugs bite. If the praying type, prayers for sassafras. Enjoy the time off. Heterodox is saying, why are some comments not appearing? I've got some automatic filters set up, and it's possible that there may be components of words or words that were in the automatic filters that got bumped, or it could be somebody from YouTube is actively monitoring and moderating. That's been known to happen from time to time. In any case, good night, everybody. It's been great seeing you here tonight. I will catch y'all a little bit later on. I think a little bit later on this week. A little bit later on this week, I'm going to be doing a bit on making wind chimes, which is just really, I don't know, is it gardening related? I like wind chimes. It's nice to have these things that you can bring in, these little elements that you can bring into your garden, which are maybe not so much, we're going to make our food and we're going to do survival gardening, but something to brighten up your day and improve overall quality of life. And I like wind chimes. Mary doesn't like them so much, but I particularly like the larger ones that you can actually hear whenever you're inside. Alan, most of the censorship filters that I'm talking about are ones where we're using words which are particularly offensive. The ones that you wouldn't want your children walking around saying at school. That's the censorship. And no, I'm going to keep them up because I don't want a parent to be afraid to have their children sit down and watch a video. Kids need to learn this stuff too. Anyway, wind chimes. We're going to do wind chimes. It's going to be cool. How to make decent quality wind chimes with low cost materials. And they'll probably be coming out later on this week. In any case, guys, I'm going to go ahead and head off to bed and turn on my air conditioner because it's hot out here. Afghanistan should not be censored. Yeah, you should be able to say Afghanistan, right? I'll list them so we all know. Anyway, guys, be good to each other. I hope you got something out of this video. And if you did, well, you know what to do. I'll catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get growing.